Welcome back to another Young, Wise, and Rich podcast episode. This is episode 2. I have my great friend here, my brother, Matthew. Matt, I actually want to ask you, bro, just tell the people a little bit of how, we met and, just that moment where it's like, you could kind of sense wow, this is a kind of different thing. For me at least, I remember when we kind of started to, as our friendship and, brotherhood started to expand, I was like, wow, this is actually somebody that I can, not even depend on in a sense of, get something I can vent to him, but, after that, it's nothing else. But actually, I could talk to him about anything. If I need something, I could call him, and, it's vice versa. So just kind of, tell the people a little bit about, just how we met and all of that, man.
Sure thing, yeah. So Adrian and I worked together at TMH here in Tallahassee, and we were both patient transporters. Mm-hmm. And Adrian started a couple months after me, so I had kind of probably a good couple months under my belt at that time. And so Adrian was assigned to me, and I was going to help train him in the whole idea and the whole process of transporting patients every day and things like that. And the first day Adrian and I met, I introduced myself to him, and the way he introduced himself immediately showed me, all right, well, he's definitely has a little bit more character than the average, what were you at the time? 18-year-old, He said, hi, my name's Adrian, strong, firm handshake, and I'm not saying that that's not hard to find, but, it's hard to find, somebody like that who is so outgoing and immediately is just, grabbing the day by the horns like that.
Right.
So growing, for that whole week, Adrian was with me and we were training together, and we had some fun, didn't we? That was a wild week. So many different things were going on. We had lots of crazy transports where we had, patients who were shouting and yelling and things like that. And all through it, Adrian just kept his composure, and that's something that really drawed me to maybe become, to draw our friendship closer, right. I think, honestly, or form that friendship. Because Adrian kept his composure at all times, and out of all the other people I had trained working in that department, I always had to say something like, oh, try not to laugh or egg them on, we want to try to remain professional because we don't know what's going on with this patient and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, the fact that you already had that composure when we met, I was definitely drawn. I was like, wow, how much character does this guy have?
Right.
Being 18 years old and already having this character instilled in him to oversee, see over all of that. That was a really big see past it. I guess it was really it was a great thing to see.
Right.
And then after you were done training and stuff, we still got to spend time together, and we eventually started meeting up for lunch and stuff like that, and just growing our friendship. And we would oftentimes talk about Christ and how he's moving in our lives. And a lot of times after Adrian left our department, we would still continue to meet up and reminisce on times and kind of think about, hey, remember that time that lady was in the elevator? She was super upset.
You're right.
That was Christ was moving through us to encourage us to do something, to help her during that moment and stuff like that. And so it was really cool to reminisce and relate our faith back to some of those aspects. And what was that, 2021?
Yeah, 2021.
So it's been about a solid 2 years, I'd say, coming up on 2 years, I'd say. Yeah.
And I think that was the one thing that I remember literally the first time he trained me, because about all the training process, you got to go to the what's it called, the when they send you for your orientation and stuff,
human resources.
Human resource. You got to go to HR, and then you got all this stuff that you got to do. So especially being new, you feel I'm wow, this is a lot. I remember calling my mom bro,
this is a lot.
Yeah, I don't know
for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to do it. So then by the time I started actually doing the job, not just the knowledge of the job, but now I'm hands on to it. And she's like, okay, I want you to shadow Matthew. Yeah. It was and that's why I'm I don't believe in coincidences. I feel God has divine, connection and divine times for you to meet certain people, bro. And I just think, just shadowing, man. I just remember us laughing, but us being serious. And that was you're the first person where first time meeting, we could talk about something serious, but I remember us talking about God, first time we met, it wasn't as deep as we talk about him now, because it's still always a filling out process. But I don't think it was ever like a, I feel like I'm going to be judged by this guy if I express my faith to him.
Absolutely.
Or, so it was really just cool just to be able just to have that, correspondence, just in person and just being like, yo, bro, like, I remember times you won't be at work and I just didn't have like, that person I could really feel like, a lot of ways that was one of the reasons that I felt like I had to leave because I had that, like, it was so much built up. Like, you get anxiety, you get, you see a lot of deaths, you see a lot of sad things. And if you're not depending on God, if you're depending on yourself, you're just going to just be so drained. And, during that time, I remember, like, after leaving, you were like, if you depend on God doing this job and if you anything in life, bro, like, that's where he's there for you. And he's the one that lifts you up when you're low. And, after that, anything I approach now, like, I'm never going to say that working in the hospital isn't in my future again because who knows, it's still a desire. I want to work with people and help people,
Absolutely.
Like, so it's pretty cool just to have that, that brother in Christ who's just going to, like, it was times I was getting frustrated and you'll be like, just stay up, bro.
Checking each other.
Yeah.
Being a check for each other.
I think that's one of the biggest things that even in this society, because, we're around so much negativity, especially coming from school. You're around so much negativity, you're around so much gossip and all that. So you don't really have those people that you may have people that they see that you're a solid person and they lean on to you and they vent to you, but you don't have that person to do that.
Right.
But then, like, I know something that we constantly remind each other of is like, yo, vent to God.
Yeah.
And God's going to give you the people that you may need to talk to. Because there's some, like, there's a lot of areas in life that you're wiser in. And I gain wisdom from that. And there's times where you'll come to me like, bro, I'm lacking, like, I'm lacking knowledge or wisdom in this. And I can help you because I've gone through it. So it's more like just helping each other, as, like Jesus was teaching his disciples to do, bro. Like how God wants us to do.
Absolutely.
And, that kind of veers into the conversation, and the topic I want us to have about finding your identity in Christ. Yeah. Especially coming from sports, you played baseball?
Baseball in high school.
Baseball. So, like, I guess one of the questions I wanted to even ask you to start off with that was like, do you feel like your identity was, because, we've talked a little bit about this, but do you feel like your identity was formed in baseball at around that age you were entering high school, or do you think it was moments or a moment in your life that it started beforehand and then it just kind of out like, high school? Because I know you got offers and scholarships and stuff, and you were a pretty good baseball player, just
somewhat,
somewhat. But do you think it was more so like a moment like, man, I was playing t-ball when I was like 5 or 6 years old and that's where my identity, or do you feel like it was more so when you started getting noticed in a sense? Like, what are your what's your thought on that for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, freshman year of high school, I'd always been playing baseball, growing up. But freshman year of high school, I went to tryouts, and it was a whole new thing for me. Growing up, you play in rec leagues, right? So it's like you pay your activity fee, and then you're placed on a team, right? There's no evaluation, there's no tryouts or anything like that, right? So it was a whole new experience to actually have to try out and earn your spot on the team, like show the coaching staff that, hey, I'm good enough to be on this team. I can contribute positively to the team.
Right.
So freshman year, actually, I got cut, right? Got cut second day of tryouts. And that was I would say that was a defining moment for me. That was when I could either choose to fail and choose to, all right, I give up, whatever, baseball's not for me, next thing, or you could choose to persevere through, that negativity, that down, being let down in that way. I think it was the Lord's will for me to continue, and then he bared me the strength to like continue going and pushing. So I ended up playing rec league again my freshman year of high school, getting better. I worked hard over that summer, and then sophomore year came around, tryouts again, got it, made the team, and that success coming over me and feeling strengthened to my core, not just physically but spiritually as well. It was extremely beneficial for me, and I think a lot of my character building and my identity was formed through that I'd be still present there, right?
Yeah.
You'd still see and hear about all the baseball games and, the other guys who were playing baseball. That's like, they're having so much fun, on the team and everything. And you feel kind of left out because, you couldn't be with them because for whatever reason you got cut, right?
Exactly.
And so that was hard. And I think that was really seeing that drive and, hearing the Lord's voice, hearing him whisper in my ear, tell me, keep moving, keep persevering through this. It will get better. I have this plan for you.
Right.
And his plan was not for me to get on that team freshman year, right?
Exactly.
His plan was to happen sophomore year.
Right.
And even though it's so minute, and now that I'm out of high school, I look back and it's like, oh wow, yeah, that really wasn't that big of a deal. But as a 14, 15-year-old, you think it is everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, especially because I can relate to that on the fact that I was always playing city league, from I think 5 years old. I was playing flag football, and I remember coaches just man, he's really good. I was fast, I was strong at that age. So I'm just from that time up. So it was a lot of ways and I grew up in a super competitive household. So it was especially I had 3 siblings and 3 sisters. So especially
3 ballers.
Yeah, and there. So it was always if we played basketball, it'll be times they would win, it'll be times that I would win, and it's man, you know what I'm saying? If you lost, you felt like it was the end of the world, right?
Oh yeah.
And then
I can see that.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when I'm young, I was like, bro, I shouldn't be losing.
You're so driven, yeah.
And so even just playing sports, and fast forward, I think around. I didn't play organized basketball until 5th grade. So we lived in Orlando still, a city called Longwood. So I was playing city, and I couldn't shoot for anything. I was just I think I was 5'1", 5'2", maybe 5th grade, and I was stocky. So I was okay. So a lot of the times the play was because I didn't have a shot, the coach was just get the rebound and lay the ball back up. And I remember times going to the free throw line and missing a crucial free throw or whatever the case may be. Even if we were down by 10, I'm okay, if I can make this, we can get down to 9, and I can just get some rebounds and pass it to our 3-point shooters or whatever the case may be. And I just remember missing those shots and just going home really down. I'm like, bro, I could have done more. I remember scoring highest I scored in that whole league was 2 points. So I remember dang, bro, I could have done way more. I could have helped more. And I remember just talking with my mom and, her just being what do you do about it? Are you the feeling that you have right now, kind of how you were saying, the feeling that you have, use it and take it. So I remember 6th grade, I remember it just kind of just looking back and, as you talk about something, you have those flashbacks in your head.
Yeah.
And, I just remember 5th grade, bro, I was looking at every basketball movie, documentary that came out, Michael Jordan, Pete Maravich, and then I started getting into Stephen Curry.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's when I was man, I have a chance to do something because I'm bigger and taller than all these other kids. So they automatically expect when I get the ball, I'm going to take it into the paint and I'm going to do a layup or, a crazy shot or something like that. But I want to develop my game. And, it kind of became it was my ego. Because then at that point, I have a great handle. I'm starting to shoot, from really far distance now. Because, now I changed my shot. I remember I used to shoot from the top of my head like that. And now I just had, my dad just taught me the fundamentals, Right. So then after that, come back here in 7th grade, fast forward, I didn't play 6th grade at all, come back in 7th grade, and there was this league here, and it was called Hoop Fest. And, I remember I was doing really good in that league. I was 13 and I was starting, and we're playing against 19 and 20-year-olds.
Yeah,
so I just remember, just imagine what my ego was doing during that time. Bro, I'm better than 19. There's 20-year-olds sitting on my bench right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm wow.
Starting over a 20-year-old.
Yeah, yeah. So it's me and my brother to this day. Me and him, we were starting. We were 13. We were entering 8th grade, and then you just imagine what that is doing to our confidence. Because now we're bro. We're in 8th grade. We're about to take over this city, bro. You know what I'm saying? So, just my identity was starting to be formed in that. And kind of how we were talking about, yesterday, just that fact that I wasn't depending on God at all with it. Obviously, I loved him. And, kind of how we were saying yesterday, it's more so about rules and regulations rather than actual relationship with him. Yeah. So, back then, I didn't know how to glorify him when I played. So, now entering to 8th grade, I was homeschooled in 5th grade. So 5th grade to at the end, like, I graduated from being homeschooled.
Right.
So I for me to try out somewhere, like I heard about tryouts late or whatever the case may be. So I was gonna be trying out at the at the middle school here, and I did have my physical, and there was this league here. It was like an AAU team, and I was starting to do the AAU stuff before, I did the I was starting to do the AAU stuff before I was doing the middle school basketball. So I was like, okay, cool. So, and I remember as I was doing it, the coach, bro, he pushed me so hard, and I know he believed in me, but I just was not disciplined. I was more so bro, I just want to play basketball. I don't want to, all this running and stuff, bro, like cardio, I do not feel like doing and now, I'm not going to say I was in bad shape, but it just wasn't, I just wasn't disciplined enough to do that.
Absolutely.
So then I'm like, I quit, because I was like, my excuse, my parents were like, why are you quitting? They paid $30. So I was like, why are you quitting? I'm like, trying to come up with a reason to back. Middle school basketball is about to happen. I know for sure that I'm more so focused on middle school because AAU is cool back then. My mind said, oh yeah, AAU is cool, but I think I'm gonna get more recognition. I'd rather lead my middle school to a championship rather than my AAU team.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, my fault. But yeah, so I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, bro, screw this. I'm trying to focus on middle school.
Right.
Then middle school basketball is about to start, and I don't have my physical, and I was distraught because I'm like, bro, I know I would have made that team. I felt back then there was no, 8th grade that was as good as a shooter as me, that was as tall and big as me. So I felt like I had all these advantages, but I didn't just get the chance to use them. And then, like I said, I quit the AAU team. So now I'm sitting at home 8th grade not playing a sport at all. Yeah. So, coming from that, Hoop Fest team, like I was saying in 7th, entering to 8th grade, we went 16-0 that season and won the championship. Yeah. So I said, 13 I'm starting. Fast forward, we win the championship. And I just remember having the medal on my chest, thinking that was the best thing in the world. Yeah. And then you kind of just enter into that, where I remember 9th grade, tried out at high school, didn't make the team, and then 10th grade I just wasn't feeling it anymore. I think that was God, just showing me I can let you make the team, but you're just gonna still have the same pattern. You win, you're at the top of the world. You lose, you're at the bottom. So
and your world revolves around that.
Yeah. And it's now my identity at around 15 was when I gave my life to Christ. So around that time I was that 15, I think we're in 9th grade already. So at 9th grade, I was already kind of starting to put basketball down. Yeah. And then 10th grade, it was more so I remember I tried out, but I didn't even really want to be there, bro. And I remember I was doing way, at my eyes, better than the people that made the team. Yeah. But especially being homeschooled, a lot of these kids, they're playing day in and day out at the school, so the coaches are already looking at them, and there's a lot more rules and, like I said, regulations where it comes to homeschool kids. So sometimes it's not
finicky.
Fair. So it's not. Sometimes it's not fair, but you just can't blame being homeschooled. You know what I'm saying? Even
there's always an excuse.
Right. It's always, like you said, always an excuse. So at that point, I guess I was just man, I just want to. Everything I do now, I want to do it for God. It's still, and even at that point, I still struggled with that. I still struggle with that whole competitive edge. That was where my identity was at, about being competitive, wanting to one up somebody. That I just feel maybe that's a guy thing, because we've talked about that before. Where it's you don't want to be outworked. And even doing transportation, I remember we'll be looking at our numbers. How many numbers did I do? Did I do this? Did I do that?
How many patients have we taken today? Let's keep those numbers up.
Exactly.
Let's be moving.
So when do you feel how I was kind of saying 15 was around the age where I'm man, I just when basketball ends, where it's let's say I get hurt and I get injured, where's my identity at? Right. And then I had that chance to think, and I had that chance to kind of reflect. So what age do you feel was your come to Christ moment, but your my identity is strictly in you, Lord. It may be hard times, tribulations, whatever the case may be, but at the end of the day, I'm still going to worship you through it all. Yeah. When I'm at the top, I'm going to worship you. When I'm at the bottom, I'm going to worship you. Yeah. And even when I'm in the middle, it's still the same way. So what age do you feel that was your case?
It was definitely not when I was 15. When I was 15, I was still so immature and going to church on Sundays, reading scripture, but I was reading scripture, right? Yeah. I wasn't living the scripture, right? So I'd be honest, probably not until my 17, 18, which is sad, but you get so distracted, and
sure.
it's life, life gets in the way, right?
Right.
You start thinking about college plans and, sports, hanging out with friends, stuff like that. So that was a real big distractor for me at that time. And once I started getting towards the end of high school, was really when I started like opening up to really understanding and living the scripture. I had just started dating Abby at the time.
Okay.
And we started going to her church.
Yeah.
And her pastor there was very influential in my, I guess you could call it revitalization of Christ in my life. Because at that point, I wouldn't say I was going down a dark path or anything, but I was definitely, I was definitely astrayed for sure.
Right.
So I definitely strayed from the path, and during those times, I think we all do at certain times in our lives. For sure. But her pastor, who actually gave me this Bible here, he was very influential. We would talk, and it was like you and I talking. It didn't feel like you were talking to some deity or someone who feels like they're higher up, or someone playing God, which was incredible. But he was able to really like talk to me as a man and really like explain how loving our Father is and how amazing He is. And so I would say around that time is when I really came to Christ. During those times, obviously growing up, there were other times where God was obviously present, and I recognized that. Yeah, for sure. But unfortunately, I haven't fully devoted my life to Him until I was probably 17 or 18.
Yeah, and I think, when I have that conversation, like, when people are like, well, when was your come to Christ moment?
Yeah.
I can say, obviously, like, for both of our backgrounds, we grew up hearing about God, and we grew up
in the church.
Yeah, in the church talking to God, but like I said, there was no relationship.
Yeah.
So even at 15, when I was like, I can say now, I was trying to find my identity in Him, but I didn't show that on a day-to-day basis. Like, even there was times like, when I was working at the hospital, like we said at 18, it was still times then where I was like, it was like, okay, well, we're supposed to be doing 23. I want to try to do 24 or 25. Because, you want the reflection on yourself, right?
Right. You want to show your manager and, the rest of your department, hey, I'm valuable.
Right.
I'm doing my job. I'm helping, you have that drive.
I remember, like, hanging out. Luckily, like I said, I was homeschooled. Like how we talked about yesterday. Luckily, it was like a shield because I wasn't exposed to as much as people who work and who are in school are.
Right.
But, it was still a lot. You still are hearing about a lot. You're still hearing about more so the negativity than the positivity.
It's definitely a culture shock for
sure.
You
have people
because all of a sudden you went from your home with your siblings, from a few to how many do we have at TMH? I mean, we have like what? In the hospital itself, probably close to over 1,200, I'd say.
I can't even give an estimate, because there's so many. It's like too many departments that really count.
And transportation, for those who don't know, we're all over the place.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like, we were probably walked on every tile in that hospital.
Yeah, exactly.
You go everywhere.
Exactly.
So, that's a big culture shock for sure. I can understand that because, you go from seeing a couple people, and you're in your comfort zone to all of a sudden, boom, whoa, I am dealing with, like you said, people talking about all these negativity, people talking about X, Y, and Z, and it's like, whoa, I have not been exposed to that. Like, what is, whoa, like this is a lot for me.
Exactly.
So I'm sure that was a lot to take in.
And even like, around that same age, like, like I know we were talking about like, like relationships, like, again, like, the wisdom that you and Abby have, because some of that stuff I wasn't even thinking about last night either.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow, like I didn't even think about that.
Right.
Like, now, like again, having that community around you that's gonna make you, that's gonna challenge you. So
gotta have fellowship.
Yeah, exactly. And at that age, for sure, like I always heard, I was raised with the principle like date, like you're not just dating to date, you're dating to marry.
Exactly.
But I didn't understand that. I was just more so. I was just like, okay, like all right. I'm like, do you know how delusional you guys sound? Like, like I'm going on a date, and you expect me just like again immaturity, right? I'm like, so I'm going on a date with this girl, and you just expect me to marry her, like like that's in my eyes. But dating to marry, like dating to be married men.
Yeah.
But then as like you get older and you develop, like at 18, like I'm like, okay, cool, like, let me get this girl's Instagram or this girl's Instagram, and nothing ever happened. Like, I would try to text and nothing would happen. Like, and it was more so God, because that was like, sometimes you can put that, again, there's so many things in life. You can put your career, your relationships, just the most simplest stuff in front of Him. And sometimes, like, when we want it the most, he won't give it to us until we realize we need him over everything.
Absolutely.
You know, especially at that age, I did not understand that. 18, I was like, bro, I mean, screw all that other stuff. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, screw the right thing you're telling me to do. Like, you know, I gotta kind of endure this myself.
I'm doing what it's good for Adrian, right?
Right.
But we don't understand that, you know, what we think is good for Adrian, what's good for Matt is not good. You know, it's not what's in his plan. It's very seldom that both plans match up. And I feel like the Lord, he laughs at us, you know, laughs with us when we make plans. You know, our own plans, right? We have our own future, you know.
Yeah, what does it say? Many are the plans in a man's heart.
Exactly.
You know? Right. Yep. So it's super funny when you can kind of read verses and you were like, man, at 14 and 15, I really need to read this verse.
Absolutely.
And then you kind of look, and then like, you know, God's like, no, like I need you to read this verse now, because if you read it at 14 and 15, you would have just threw it in the dumpster like you did every other good thing that ever.
You'd be reading the scripture, you wouldn't live it.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, you know, especially like, you know, and then I remember my prayer changed. And my prayer was like, you know, God, like, you know, remove the people out of my life that, you know, that's going to make me feel more insecure, make me feel like I have to prove myself, or, you know, drain me, or like, you know, like make me do everything that's unlike you, have conversations that's unlike you, and place the people in my life that are going to push me to know you more and push me to be the best version of Adrian that I could possibly be, and just be the man that you created me to be. Because to be the people that he created us to be, we need that community. We need that people around us. And you understand that certain things are seasonal, and then you also understand that there are some people that you just know for sure, like that's a person that I'm going to talk to till the wheels fall off. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I appreciate, like, you know, that aspect of it, because it's like, you know, I went through that period where it was like, you know, people who I was talking to at like 6th, 7th grade, like, you know, who we were really close, like, you know, talking every single day, you know, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, bam, they're out. Yeah. And sometimes again, like, you know, you can put that over him, because now if you want to talk to somebody, right, you're calling them on the phone or you're texting them, because that's bringing you something. Right. But you're not depending on him. But then you realize, like, okay, let me talk to my Father. Let me spend time in my Word. Let me just sit in silence. So I think we talk about prayer a lot without the silence aspect, because you can't hear His voice if you're constantly talking.
If you're talking, absolutely. It's just a one-way conversation.
And then you realize He gives you the best of both worlds. He gives you the best in your physical life and your spiritual life. Yeah. And then, again, like, you know, for instance, we're not looking at this friendship like, yo, man, like, you know, like, Adrian is doing, like, you know, this for me, like, you know, this is a person that I can vent to, or Matthew is this is a person that if I need an answer, he has the solution. Exactly. Like, no, we understand that God has given us the wisdom. Yeah. So now we're not looking at each other like, yo, bro, like, this is my brother, I need this, I need that. It's like, yo, pray about it. I'm gonna pray about it. If I need help, again, we're gonna pray about it, and then we're gonna approach each other. It's not like okay, we're gonna make a quick and fast decision. You know, now luckily I have those people that, you know, are in my life that are going to push me to be, like, you know, that person.
So go to the Lord.
Exactly. Because, you know, sometimes, like, we kind of like to, it's not the people, it's us. Like, we have
it's human nature. Yeah. To you know, to go to things of this world before Him, you know. It's so common, you know, especially like what you were saying, like, you get really stressed. I do this a lot, you know, you get really stressed and you just start venting about somebody who really is, you know, doing something that really, like, maybe irritated you or something, you know, like that's a big thing, you know, you just want to vent to somebody, and it's like, well, maybe because a lot of times when you're venting like that, at least me, maybe most people aren't like this, but I know with me, sometimes I say things that, you know, I shouldn't say about a person, because, you know, that's just, that's, you know, you're just saying slander about someone. And it's not right. You shouldn't do that. That's not what the Lord calls us to do. So sometimes I think, you know, or at least in this specific example, going before the Lord before all else will help you have those moments, even if it's just like you said, sitting in silence, you know, having that moment to let Him talk to you and say, this, you know, it's okay. This is my plan. This is what I want for you. Right. You know, at this time, this is how I want you to feel. This is how I want you to act. You know? I think that, you know, that's a great example of, like, what you're trying to say. Yeah,
and, you know, I think that's, like, one of the important parts, because you realize that everybody in the Bible had somebody. Yeah. You know, it wasn't like the person, like, you know, because sometimes as human beings we can place, like I said, things or people in God's place.
Absolutely.
And then when those things don't happen, we blame God for some odd reason. I don't know why that happens.
There's a disconnect.
Like, you know, we want to, like, you know, if we're in a certain relationship, like, yo, like, you know, like, why'd you allow this friend to, come in my life and, betray me? Or why'd you allow this girl to come in my life and she, use me or whatever the case may be? And it's like, because you didn't, don't put me in that because I had nothing to do with it. That was all your will. Again, free will.
Yeah.
Like how we're talking about,
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with him.
Mm-hmm.
And, as human beings, we like to blame him for things that
Absolutely.
we did.
It's easy.
It's kind of what we're talking about at Bible study. You know, we do so many things, and it's like, again, he's for the solution. He's the last resort rather than, the first one.